Do you remember what the deciding factor was in which communities were resurgent communities?
I do.
Yeah, I bet you do. Because it hits your topic. Anyway, who remembers?
Detroit may want to.
Was it leadership?
Leadership is one factor.
Partnership?
Partnership's another case. Of course, you got that word up there. It was collaborative leadership. It involves partnership and it involves leadership in the community. And over the long haul, we look back 50 years to see which communities would in fact become resurgent communities. And the Fed discovered that the most important factor was collaborative leadership. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about collaborative leadership. You just practice a little bit of this in the tables out there to understand, what are some of the pitfalls in collaborative leadership? What are some of the ways that when we work together well, we can really achieve great things? So, first thing to look at is who might be involved. And Reggie, a few years ago, in the introduction to the preface to one of my friends' book, it was called "To Transform a City." Ever hear that book? It was written by Aaron Swanson and Sam Williams, who walked into the cities with me many years ago. In the preface, Reggie wrote an introduction about calling the party. And part of the reason Salvation Army, Donnie Dixon and others called us in from good cities was they said, we would love at the Salvation Army to learn how to call the party. And so if you look around your city or community, you'll find people from at least these 7 channels of influence in your community. And here I've gone, see if we go backwards. There we go. Commerce. Who in business would have an interest in what the Salvation Army is doing? In many of the communities that we've worked with in Florida, we've worked with 6 other cities prior to this, and so now we're working with 9 cities. Commerce is always interested in how are the poor being treated, because if they're not treated well in the community, where do they show up? They show up in the business districts as people who are asking for help at every stoplight. And they say, that hurts our tourism in our city. And so business leaders want to know, how are we caring for the poor in our community? Yes?
I think that's an interesting list because in building our advisory board in a community, we tend to go in that same naming list, except for the nonprofit. But we're affiliated with and a part of United Way, which is a nonprofit.
Sure, yeah. So when you see this, and some people talk about these, the 7 mountains. What I want to talk to you about today is to say, please don't ever use that terminology. Because when we talk about the 7 mountains, these guys often talk about, if we can just get to the pinnacle of the mountain, we'll control that ground. And that's not what we're about. We're about servant leadership. I don't have to talk to the Salvation Army about servant leadership. You guys are all about servant leadership. We're looking for servant leaders who are in each of these channels whose values will align with the values of the Salvation Army. If they don't align, guess what? We are representatives of the King. We are ambassadors for Christ. We bring the good news of the gospel that can free people from their power addiction by becoming a servant leader and walking humbly with their God. And so each of these channels are ways that people can begin to bring their gifts to bear. And we talk about cross-sector collaboration. What does cross-sector collaboration do? Why would we want people from different sectors?
It brings a synergy of interest and capacity and ability to move forward in meeting those dynamic needs.
That's right. It brings synergy. And it brings, I don't know about you, but I've found that people in each of these sectors have their own language.
Right.
They have their own culture. They know how to talk to each other. And sometimes it looks like channels of influence, but what's it also look like? Silos. Sometimes these people are siloed, and you know what? They feel like, I think sometimes they get home from work, they're worn out because they've been talking to people who speak the same language all day, and it hasn't become as interesting as they thought it was when they went into that career. And they would like to have a conversation, someone in government would like to have a conversation with someone from a charitable nonprofit who has a different motive than the person in government. Someone from education might like to talk to somebody in business who has a different approach to things that the schools have. So, what else? What else? Why else would you want people to have cross-sector relationships?
Makes it more effective in our community. It involves everybody serve the community.
How does it make it more effective? I like what you said. How does it do that?
Because all of them serve different aspects of the community. So in working together, being more connected, there's more like crossing. Yeah,
Linkage.
There's sphere of influence.
Okay, so say that again?
Their sphere of influence is different.
Their sphere of influence is different. So you're bringing a different expertise, a different gifting, a different strength, a different calling, and so when you bring all these groups together and they're from different sectors within the city or community, does any one of them have a true and balanced view of the community in their own sector?
No.
Together, do they have a bigger view?
Yes.
So you begin to get a bigger view of the city when you begin to get folks from their sectors. Is this all the sectors that are there that you would like to involve?
No.
No, it's just a few of them.
Right.
There are many more than just these 7. These 7 are an example. They are not meant to be universally, the whole universe, especially you working in the mayor's office, you probably would say, oh, that's a nice list, but it's not everything.
Well, it's only one mayor. There's 34 mayors in Miami-Dade County.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yes.
I think one of the very important pieces of
I didn't know
this
that either.
that we are
Over here.
missing is really the people that are affected by the services that we provide.
Okay.
I think having clients or constituents, whichever way, our little piece of the pie is, I think we sometimes we fail to listen and get them involved with what we do.
This is very good. I appreciate this because Reggie and I are going to be in Kansas City soon. We're working with the mayor's office in Kansas City and the Salvation Army, and then a lot of government agencies and a lot of nonprofits and some business leaders. We're going to be working on something they call Zero KC, which is a strategic plan from the mayor's office to end homelessness in Kansas City. And one of the factors that one of our key leaders has said to us, we really need to include people with lived experience on the streets. They say, you really can't hold this meeting just with these people. You've got to have the folks who've experienced it. And I think about a guy, a Catholic priest out in LA, what's his name? Father Greg Boyle, right? Yeah. And Greg Boyle, have you ever heard of him? Famous. He's got Homeboy Industries.
And homegirl.
And Homegirl Industry too?
Yeah.
Okay, so he started these with gang members off the streets, and many of them have come to faith in Christ because he cared enough about them to say, you have value, let's do something together that expresses that value. They started businesses, and their lives have been changed. And now whenever he travels places, because lots of places ask him to come and speak, he brings 2 of his homies with him. And you know what? Once the homies speak, he doesn't have to say anything.
Right.
So he has them speak, and some of it's the first time they've ever spoken anywhere in front of a group, and they tell about their lived experience. And it changes them. It changes everything. So that's not up there. Reggie, why don't you put that on your list?
I didn't do this slide.
Oh, you didn't do this slide. I did this slide.
I don't know how else to say it.
We already said there's many others that could be up there.
Thank the
You
Lord.
covered yourself.
It's on the other side of the screen.
It's on the
Let's flip to the next slide. What's a network? A network is a group of people who share information with one another. We have lots of networks that we're aware of in any community. A network, so if you were to say, okay, information, people say is king, but I think information is the starting point. Information is a good place because you can form relationships freely when you're sharing information. And some of the information you'll share, and some of the information you see will be valuable. I don't know about you, but my inbox is filled with too much information, and most of it's not valuable. I look for what's valuable every day among the information that I can use in the work that I'm doing. And I reject a lot of information. It's just not, even though people think it's valuable for me, it's just not. And so I move on. On the other end of this, I would say you know, if we said the other end is partnership, and you know, I would say it's a formal agreement with measurable results between organizations or individuals. So it's a formal agreement with measurable results. So if you were to say that this is the spectrum, I wonder where on this spectrum would we see collaborative leadership falling?
All along the way.
All along the way. So you might have something that is nascent, right? Information that say, I'm interested in getting to know you, right? Okay. So that may be the beginning of a collaborative partnership, right? Okay. Anybody else? Where else do you think collaborative leadership would fall?
On a project, a need in a community.
On a specific project, okay? So I would say that if you're collaborating on a project, it's probably more out in this area, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Because you're going to have some measurable outcomes that you want every partner to contribute toward. And if you find that a partnership doesn't contribute toward it, you end that partnership.
Right.
You know, you don't want to continue, or you modify the partnership along the way.
Well, if there's a specific area that you're trying to identify, maybe a mission study. Do a study on it, a strategic plan.
So an early mission study might be out in the information section that tells us some information about the community that we have to then decide, do we need to call in other partners to address this? Is this something we really need to address at all? And so information tends to be down toward the network side of things, but it can move this way very quickly when we begin to engage other people. So, so partnerships and networks are not the same thing. I think we just have to recognize that there are lots of relationships we can have. Some of them are valuable out there. And those are the ones we want to press into and begin to draw in others around us. So, so what we want to do, and this is something that I did my doctorate on, is my doctorate is in transformational leadership in the global city. You guys all have global cities here. You have people speaking multiple languages, and there's an incredible spectrum of needs here, as well as an incredible richness of possibilities for each of you. Now, one of the things that we found in the church, and this is true among most Christians, is that we tend to form our relationships around what we call bounded set relationships. Sometimes we don't get out of these very easily. A bounded set relationship is defined by a solid line. You see, it's a circle, right? And everything inside that circle is like the other things in the circle. So it could be the universe of all the oranges, or the universe of all the apples, but they're not in the same universe as the bounded with, species specific. Christians have done this around membership in the church. And we have said, do you believe like I believe, or do you practice the way we practice? And we've divided ourselves into bounded sets of these individual congregations in our communities based upon this question: do you believe like I believe, or do you practice the way we practice the faith? I want to say there's another way that we can be looking at things, and this is called a centered set relationship. In a centered set relationship, you have a center, it's a focal point. Let's say it's teenage alcoholism and chemical abuse. Okay? Now, there could be others who are interested in teenage alcoholism and chemical abuse at different levels. The vectors that are close to the center would be those that are really care about it a lot and are doing things about it all the time. A little further out, have an interest in their grandparent or kid whose life has been impacted by this. They'd like to support it, they may give financially to it, but they may not be as involved as those closer to the center. And then you've got other arrows like that one that's pointed out to the side. Not interested. Just not interested. I'm going away from that because I don't have anybody that I know of who's involved in that right now. It could be a parent of a young child, right? But their kid grows up and becomes a teenager and begins smoking dope, begins using cocaine, begins tending toward addictive behavior. What happens to that arrow?
It turns around.
It turns around. They become people close to the center. My kid's involved in this.
Right.
We got to do something about this now. Did you know 80% of our kids are involved with drugs? Some of them are getting addicted. My kid did. You know what? That's the kind of thing that happens in a centered set relationship. People can change the area, the direction, how much they care about an issue. And there's lots of issues. There's hundreds, maybe thousands of issues where we have centered set relationships all throughout our city.